My people, what up, though? We back with another episode of All Black Men Need Therapy. My name is Chief.
And I'm Bell.
And we got our podcast partners to the left or to the right or up to whatever, however you see it on your screen. From their podcast, Still Figuring It Out, introduce yourself, ladies.
Hi, I'm Sabrina.
Hey, I'm Arielle, and you're listening to Still Figuring It Out,
where me and Arielle get together and we figure shit out.
Every week.
Every week.
Most of the time.
I don't even know if we figured out how to do this intro yet.
All good. We decided to go ahead and join forces today in order to bring you all a different perspective of our entanglement situationship episode last week. We cut it short because we wanted to make sure that we brought the ladies on to hear their opinion because you guys was talking a lot of shit about us.
First of all, I forgot that you guys do videos, so I'm going to put myself in better light here. Hold on. So nobody mind me while I get cuter, okay? Just ignore me over here getting cuter.
There's a background noise now. This is very exciting.
No doubt. So we rolling. Arielle, you on the hot seat first. You ready to go?
I'm ready.
Wait. What? Before we jump in, we should recap a little bit about last week's episode.
Yeah. And I want to talk about last week's episode before you grill Arielle.
Okay.
Yeah. He always trying to get right to it. So we got some feedback.
He just wanted to ask me questions. Don't be jealous.
Hey, I see where this is going. I'm just telling y'all that right now. But anyway, we got some feedback, and some of the feedback was
got some good feedback. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, some of it was they wish it was longer. Right, that was actually our shortest episode to date, and that was intentional. Right, and it should also be noted for those listening, this is the first episode Chief and I have done remote. So
yeah, we're not in the same space, so it is a little awkward. You know what I'm saying? The energy is always different, but we still gonna make it work.
We're always in a different room, a different state than each other. So you guys got this. You're big boys.
You do it.
We'll appreciate it. Another thing is I'm not gonna lie. Like I was expecting, and maybe it's coming, but I was expecting to get more flack from the women on some of our viewpoints, and not that any of it was. I mean, it was how we felt and, how we perceived our situations.
Yeah, but there was nothing like derogatory or
No. I was just expecting to get, that's not true, or no one.
Here it comes.
No one's hit me up and was like, that you
divided the It's Not True team to your podcast.
I didn't hit you up because I knew I was coming on your podcast, Chris.
and that's I respect it. So I'm looking forward to getting into it because, not that you're trying to convince me, but I just feel like
everybody got a drink. Let me get a drink.
My viewpoint, I guess my viewpoint is accurate from my perspective.
Of course it is.
But, from your perspective. So anyway, that was, so last week's episode, it was obviously one-sided. So we wanted to bring these lovely ladies on to gain another perspective. And also probably, maybe, to voice some of the things that a lot of listeners haven't voiced, right? And then you can hear us address it in real time. Chief, did you have anything to add about last week's episode?
I thought it was cool. I thought the feedback was dope. But again, I think hearing the ladies' perspective is going to help open our minds a little bit. And then we can get into some intense debate and see how it goes.
Is it my turn?
Sure.
Go ahead, Sabrina.
Okay, I have 4 things that are like not super serious, and then 2 things that are more serious. So I'll go in order of levity. So the first thing I was going to say was right off the gate, and I texted this to you guys 90 seconds in. I don't know, like when you guys are talking about how you got your nicknames. For the record, I call them mostly Chris. I call Bell Chris because that's his name. And I stopped referring to him as Homeboo a long time ago, which was how I originally knew him. And then we call Chief P because it's the first letter of his last name, and that's how I was introduced to him 10 years ago. So if you hear me say P or Chris, you guys will know who I'm talking to. And they call me Sabine because that's how they were introduced to me because it's my club name. Yeah. So.
Oh, actually, we were introduced to you as Sabrina. Sabine came out in Vegas.
Yeah, my Vegas name.
What's her ego?
It's what I used to tell people because, like, if a guy says Sabine in the club, it sounds close enough to Sabrina, but it's also not my real name. So
Interesting. I don't think I've ever met Sabine in all these years.
oh, but you met her. She just was called Sabrina by then. You know her intimately. Anyway, so when you're talking about getting your nickname, P, and you're like, yeah, I was the strong safety, and I called the plays for the defense. Before Chris even said anything, I was like, well, who the fuck is your middle linebacker? The strong safety is calling the plays in the defense. Like that's ridiculous. Who does that? And then you guys talked it out, and I was like, okay. So
yeah, for the record, I was real confused by that. I of course did not understand what was happening. So I appreciate you trying to explain it. I'm still kind of fucking lost about it, but that's okay.
So you must not have had any entanglements with football players.
Yeah, I'll teach you to football.
Arielle, the best way I can explain it is the name of a very famous middle linebacker, and that's Ray Lewis, and you don't know the name of any strong safeties. So
maybe I do, Sabrina. I don't know.
There were two Hall of Famers on that defense.
I might know who it was.
I'm
one
telling,
of them, the strong safety.
Yeah, and one of them's the strong safety, and one of them has the statue in front of the stadium.
Oh,
yeah, that's Ray Lewis.
What's
so.
Jake?
Touche.
Quarterback.
Jay Cutler's a quarterback. That's a whole different side of the ball. But thank you so much for playing. Let's move on.
Well, just for people in the future, later this month, Sabrina and I are actually doing a DNC, so the Democratic Party versus the NFL, where we teach each other and ask each other questions about those things, because I don't know shit about football, and Sabrina doesn't really know a lot about the Democratic Party. So
nope, sure don't.
Look forward to that.
Each one teach one.
The second thing I thought about with your episode is that, Chris, you and I stay trying to get our best friends into happy relationships using podcasting, and I think that we should be commended for that.
Is that a thing?
I appreciate. Oh, Sabrina and I pitch me every week.
Every week.
Really?
If there are any guys out there who are single and available and of good quality, our email address is sabrinaandarielle@gmail.com. Please send it the email, and I'll arrange it for her. So.
Thank you.
Chief's single, and he's a good quality, but we don't have to go there right now. I just want to put
Chief,
that
have you been on virtual dates? Because I have.
No, I haven't done virtual dating.
You fucking up already. You got to go on some virtual dates.
No.
I don't know about virtual dates.
What else do you do right now?
Yeah, seriously.
Connecticut is the best state in the country.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The curve for COVID.
You guys are allowed out. You guys are allowed out.
So we going out.
The third thing that I am glad that our 9 years of being friends, me as your sister friend, means that you could hear me saying things in your head while you were having discussions. That means I've done my job of getting into your brain.
Was I accurate? Was I accurate?
You pretty much were with what you were saying. Yeah.
Wait, what happened? What did I miss?
I mentioned something about what Sabine would say in regards to a situation.
Oh, on the episode.
Yeah. And I was
when I listened back to the episode, I only listened to me.
Okay. Cool. And then the last thing, something that's in the middle is, I guess it's the theme of this whole thing is that dating is hard, but if it's done properly, it prepares you for the battles that you need to fight in your relationship to keep it. So it's a different kind of battle once you're in a relationship, but there are some parts of the skill set that are overlapping. And I think that's just what I took away from like the whole thing, talking about like hookup culture and like online dating, like literally any facet of dating. Dating is hard, and it's a thing that like, it's not for the faint of heart, which is why some people get that shit arranged so they don't have to do it, because So, and then the fifth thing was, and I have a theory, and everybody, if you want to, you can at me. I have years of experience and evidence to back this shit up. But
years of experiences in entanglements?
No, to back up my theory, but yes, of an entanglements. I have a theory about something called successful black man syndrome, and we can go into that later. Arielle knows my theory on that.
It's actually a very on point theory.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll get there. And then the last thing I was going to say is that when you talk about women bending their standards, you all didn't allow room for people's standards to grow and change as they mature. So like that's something you guys didn't give women credit for. You said that like some people have them and they have to stick to them, and I'm like, well, what I thought I wanted when I was 24 is definitely not what I wanted when I was 34. So
yeah, but the question is, when you were 24, did you stick to what you thought you wanted?
I don't remember. Probably sometimes yes, sometimes no. I also drink Moscato when I was 24. So like, you know,
No
bad
shade
life
to those who
decisions.
still drink Moscato.
Don't do that. Don't do it.
I mean, if I wanted fruit punch, I buy it for 99 cents at Walmart instead of spending.
What's that blue what's the blue drink?
Hypnotic.
Yes.
Oh God, that's taking me back to college.
I used to make this my 21st birthday. I made it like my cocktail, and it had Hypnotic in it. And that's just
Hypnotic and Hennessy, Incredible Hawks.
Word.
Yeah, that was the theme of college
I
in
heard
the early
about it.
2000s. Yeah, me too, P. I also heard about it. Mhm.
Yeah, because you didn't do it. Okay, cool. We jumping into it?
Let's do it.
Let's
Go
go.
ahead.
Arielle, you were on the hot seat.
I'm on the hot seat. I'm ready. So entanglements, have I had them?
First of all, what did it mean to you? How would you define the entanglement? Because one thing we didn't do in the last episode was harp on the actual component of leaving a relationship to have another relationship or have an entanglement. We use it as just non-relationship titled situations. I guess.
What I also think is entanglement is I think it's a fluid definition, right? Like I think it can be you're in a relationship and you're cheating, that can be considered an entanglement. You can be dating somebody but not like committed, that can be an entanglement, right? Because you can be entertaining other people. I think for the purpose of this discussion, I mean, I think all things are on the table.
Well,
right?
also,
Right, so
if you think about it, if we're talking about Jada and what's that little boy's name that she was with, guys?
August Osina.
Okay, is this month. So if you're talking about Jada and August, then like they're both in an entanglement together. So from her perspective, it is stepping outside of her marriage and dealing with this younger man. But August is also in an entanglement. And for him, it's dealing with someone like kind of being in a relationship without a title and knowing that they may have something pulling them somewhere else. So for each of them.
And the understanding from his perspective, presumably that.
Say that again?
The understanding from his perspective that it could presumably be more than an entanglement.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
From her perspective, she's like, "Oh, nah, you just."
But how do we know he didn't have a boo? He's just not. It's August, and then there's Will. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and then there's Jada, and then there's his boo, right? Or this one, yeah.
Right.
So you know what I'm saying? Like any girl he's dealing with is not gonna. I shouldn't say not, but I would imagine they're not gonna measure up well to Jada.
Right.
That's that Baltimore. That's women from Baltimore. Just saying.
Anyways, Arielle.
Anyway, back to me.
Right.
So what I'll say is, we're talking about, like you just kind of said it, like what was the expectation going and like what was August's understanding of the situation. So I think that is really important. So I've only really had one real entanglement that has lasted many years actually, and we had an understanding from the jump that it was just about what it was. It was nothing more, nothing less, and we're still really close and we're still friends and we still text and we still talk. But for when it was, and this is when I was living in Baltimore, it was very specific, and we had that conversation from the onset. So I think there are very clear expectations, and if either of us was starting to date someone seriously, then we would let the other person know. But we had a very clear understanding of what it was. This man had a key to my house, and we just.
You were in a fucking relationship.
We were not in a relationship. That's what I'm saying. We weren't.
So why not though?
Yeah, why not? Why wasn't he worth, or why did he meet the threshold of someone who could be your boo thing?
He did not want a relationship, and I still wanted to mess around with him. So I was okay with what it was, knowing full well that I could have a relationship at any point that I wanted.
That doesn't sound like bending of standards right there?
No, because I never expected him to be. That's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't have that expectation because we had the conversation from the beginning.
So then my question is, if you chose to pursue somebody while you were dealing with him, what was the expectation of that new person? Like, did you want a relationship with that new person potentially?
Yeah. And we would stop doing what we were doing if that was the case.
Then why? So you ultimately wanted a relationship. It's just the entanglement person, didn't want one.
Yes. And I did not want a relationship with somebody who didn't want that too.
Right. But you were cool. That's back to the playing house. and I was cool with that. And
No. She had needs. You guys are forgetting that. Like,
No.
she found a guy. She found a guy she liked, that she could tolerate hanging out with, who she could also like do adult things with, and like she knew he didn't want a relationship, so she wasn't going to push that part. But that doesn't mean she wasn't still looking for her relationship somewhere else, while having the needs for companionship and physicalness, sexy time met.
So that goes back to, so that doesn't sound like bending her standards. Like, she wanted a relationship, but found a dude who didn't want one. So she's like, well, fuck it. I can have sex with him. I like him. I'll have sex with him. No?
But like, standards for what? Like, what
No,
standard
I
is
was
she
going to
put in
say,
there?
I don't think she bent her standards. I think she went into one expectation, quickly realized that it couldn't be that. So she altered what she was looking for this particular person, but still continued to pursue that what she actually wanted. She just knew it wasn't going to be with this person. But what I will say is, and this is a question, Arielle, were you able to wholeheartedly, and this is another thing I mentioned on the last episode, were you able to wholeheartedly pursue that actual relationship with someone else, knowing that this guy has a key to your house?
Well, so I'll say that he didn't use the key without me knowing, right? So that feels like a big part of it. Like, anytime he would come over, it was prearranged. Now, did I continue to pursue? Yes. There was a time when I lived in Baltimore where I literally gave myself like almost like deadlines. Like, I was like, I'm gonna send at least 3 messages on Bumble this week, and I have to go on at least 1 date every week. I was real serious about that. And I was like out there. And I remember going on like, Sabrina will remember these better than me probably, but I remember I dated that like random brain surgeon, that white guy, and we went on like 6 dates or something, but I just was not feeling it. I did not want to kiss him, hook up with him, like, was not feeling it. But I kept willing myself to like want to, because he was so great in so many other ways. But I was definitely, out there looking. The irony being, once I left Baltimore, I ended up having a very long-term relationship with someone from Baltimore after I had moved to Chicago. So the world works in weird ways. I don't know. Sabrina was talking about like expectations changing as you get older. So now when I approach relationships, is very different from when I was 22, right? And so now when I approach relationships, I look at it through the lens of like, is this somebody that I could genuinely see myself being with and partnering with and having a child with? Those are very different expectations than when I started dating my boyfriend in New York. I was fresh out of college. I was out there to have a good time. It was just so different. And I sometimes wonder, I actually thought about this yesterday. I thought to myself, like, I wonder if that puts too much pressure on a relationship from the onset, because there are different expectations once you hit your 30s, I think, as a woman, because, the clock is ticking. You got to have a baby. You got to do all these things. And you're trying to find someone to do those things with. And I take that very seriously. And so I'm not just out here trying to have kids with anybody. And I think that sets a lot of expectations from the beginning of somebody else. I don't know if that's a bad thing necessarily, but it's just like a very different level of commitment.
How soon do you roll out those expectations?
That I want to have kids from the jump.
And do you not give somebody a chance who, let's say maybe they have a kid, or they aren't at the point where they know for a fact they want to have another kid?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess I'm trying to think who I've been with that didn't. I'm lying. Mo, and this is a perfect example. My first boyfriend out of college in New York, I dated him the 5 years I lived there. And we were 7 years apart. And then when I was 22, he was getting ready to turn 30. And at the time, he was like, I don't want to get married. I don't want to have kids. And I was like, I don't give a shit. I'm 22. What do I care? But then by the time I turned 27, I promised you I cared. And then it became a problem. So I gave it a few years and then realized like this wasn't it. But again, it's that change of expectation. By then, I knew what I really wanted. And that wasn't the relationship I wanted to be in. And so I broke up with him and moved to Baltimore. I ran away.
Well, I think Arielle touches on something that's important. It's like, you have to know what you want. It's like, so often we instruct women to date for the purpose of finding a mate. And we don't do the same thing with men from the beginning. And so when you talk about standards, like, standards for what? Like, there are some baseline standards for someone that I'm going to exchange bodily fluids with. And that's something that I think
Are you spitting in his mouth?
Let me be clinical. I wanted to cover all the bases.
Okay. I literally just got lightheaded. Oh my God.
Anyway, there is a base.
For that.
There is a base level of standards for someone that I'm going to either be seen in public with, or like just date. There's some guys that you just date because you feel like doing something, and dating can be fun. But we spend so much time talking about like how, like as a woman and your biological clock and like all of these things that like number one, men don't have to deal with in the same way, but also like nobody's like, oh well, you know, you better settle down because your sperm is getting old or whatever they tell you guys. They don't really say that.
It does get old, so
it does, and I know that because I know that because I've read a lot on the internet about what can affect like healthiness of fetuses, as I have one inside of me. So like I just wanted to know, like, were we both too old? But like yeah, so like it's not it it's just, my point is like, as a guy, no one's probably ever said like, oh, you're bending your standards. It's like, nah, I just hit that or whatever, or she's not like the one, like, and it's that we don't take those answers from women in the same way, and I think that's just fucking unfair.
Well, I think too is, and hear me clear, I think sometimes guys don't have the bar set. I think the women that come into their life actually set that bar, right? So like, I'm speaking for myself, whereas like I'm just out having fun, right? I didn't even contemplate marriage or anything like that in my 20s until I met somebody who I was like, I guess I could get married. And not that that conversation ever came up, but when you start seeing these things in a woman that may be different than what you've experienced, it can get you to that point where it's like, all right, this may happen. And hey, I'm sure there's guys out there that are in their 20s that are actively looking for a wife, right? That just wasn't me, right? So I can't speak for that perspective. And I know Chief was the same way. But what I will say is it was a woman who helped me understand where my bar was after it was over. So then it was like, okay, now I know where the bar is.
For most men, I think it takes that woman to kind of set us straight. Honestly speaking, I think we kind of just go with the flow until the pressure is put on, per se. Like a lot of guys will just go through the relationship until the lady's like, look, we've been fucking at this for long enough. We need to be married. And dude's like, well, shit, maybe she's right. And now we look at that thing. So I think personally, from me, or just in general, I think men, from what I've seen, the guys I've noticed, it's been the woman who's put that, who's held that bar up. Said, listen, meet me here or it's over. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it's a delicate conversation.
Of course,
right?
For
like,
sure.
I've had girls give me ultimatums before, and it was like, well, it's either me or it's over. I was like, well, I choose the latter, right? Just because you're not about to do this. You're not backing me in no corner. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But now the right girl, because Lo put that pressure on me too. But it's how it's framed. It's how the conversation is. It's not like you about to be with me, we about to be together today or else. But it's like, here's the situation. Again, it's like sales, right? Like if I say it, it's not true. But if you say it, it is true, right? So if I tell you how you feel, you may fight it. But if I ask you how you feel and you tell yourself, then now that's truth. You can't debate that with yourself. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing. It's a psychological component to it as well, where it's like, if you also got to both be on the same page though, right? Like you can't be ripping and running for 5 years with this girl in a relationship and she's fully committed, or vice versa, and they're fully committed, and then we're like, oh, we need to get married. Like, nah, we've never been on the same page. You just don't want to admit it. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a balance that has to happen.
So when we talk about this time gap and whatnot, so I think it was 27, Arielle, you said you realized that the marriage thing was starting to, to bug, or the better life, or that, traditional life was starting to play in your mind. At 24, if dude came up to you and hit you with the, I want to be married, this is what I'm looking for, blah, 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 would that have scared you away? Because most guys now are like, yo, if I'm upfront and on the table about what I'm expected, it's scaring her away versus kind of like putting it on the table.
Well, I think it depends, right? So I think Sabrina and I are very different people, and she's going to answer this very differently. Having kids has always been something I've wanted. Being married is something I've always wanted. So for me, it's like, do I think you're the right person? If so, then yes, let's do it. But I'm also very picky. I think, especially, and maybe this is something that I've learned as I've gotten older, but I think who you marry and who you partner with is a representation of who you are. And so if I'm not in the room, and I work in politics, I need to have somebody that I know can be my surrogate, can talk about me and can talk about us and represent us in the best possible light. and is also going to be the most wonderful father to our children. So I look at it in a very different way, maybe than I would have at 24. But it's something I've always wanted. But I think now that I've waited for it, I think my expectations have grown higher and the type of man that I want to be with.
So
I'll also say, though, that, Chris, I think when you talk about low, I hear men talk about that a lot, right? You put the pressure on and whatever, but it's the right girl. I think all of us women want to be the one that inspires you to be that person. And I think that's probably what hurt me most in my last relationship, that I felt like I should be able to inspire you to get to that point and wasn't doing that. And so I think you have to, you know, as a woman, it's a hard thing because you're like, well, why am I not getting him to get to where I'm at, right? You got to get on that same page. And if you're up here and he's not, then how do you get him there? And so for some women, they try to put that pressure on, but then it just doesn't work out. So I think it takes the right, like you said, the right kind of woman to inspire you to want to be better and to make those moves with them.
I think that's clutch, especially for, I think, a man who has earned a certain level of success in his life. I think it comes to a point where we kind of need a woman. Sabine, that's back. I'm gonna roll into your theory a little bit.
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead. You keep talking though, then I'll get to my theory.
I just think as we reach a certain level of success, whatever that may be, we need that counterpart to kind of keep pushing us. You ever read that little Barack and Michelle Obama clip on Instagram or whatever? And it's like they were out to dinner one day, and the restaurant manager asked the Secret Service if he could speak to Michelle. Barack's like, yeah, go ahead. So she goes to speak to him, and she comes back, and she's like, yeah, that was so-and-so I used to date in long time ago. He's like, oh, so had you been with him, you would have been the owner of this fine establishment. She goes, no, had I been with him, he would have been the president of the United States. That type of party.
Yeesh.
You know what I'm saying? But that's the kind of party I want to join.
Yes.
You know
so just real quick, Arielle, to touch on one of the things you said in terms of, I don't remember exactly how you said it, but basically you voiced frustration about not being the woman that can get the guy to that point.
Inspiration, Chris. I didn't inspire him, I don't think.
Well, my comment to that is twofold. Either he wasn't the right one for you or you weren't the right one for him. So like, I look at it like this. It's like nobody was going to get me to do something I didn't want to do, right? No matter how good Lo was with words, right? And no matter how much I felt about her, I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't ready. But I think identifying that as a challenging part, right? Like, well, I think we all know, like, I think, you know, everybody on this call knows when this is the right person. The question is whether you're going to admit it aloud, and two, if they feel the same way, right? Go ahead. You said you already cut me off.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say, and it helps to have a good group of friends, because I don't know if you've ever heard the story, Sabine, but we, as his best friends, felt the pressure, I guess, being not put on him, but, you know, we felt like, okay, there's this shift happening. So Austin and I pulled him down and sat him down, like, yo, are you sure this is what you want to do? Like,
Chris, are me and Desiree the only ones that didn't? Because Melissa did that to you too. So Melissa, P, and us all in some way pressured at some point your relationship with Lo. I guess me and Des were the only ones who were like, you know what?
Yeah.
Sit in the back for a little bit.
P and Os got the most grief though, because they chose to do it like 4 weeks before the wedding or some stupid shit.
Oh, to ask you if it was really they put the pressure on to just make sure you were okay. Yeah. Instead of Melissa making you or helping to make you shit or get off the pot at the beginning. Yeah, but again, like I said, to Arielle, like I was saying, it doesn't matter what anybody says, right? Like, it has to all make sense, and it has to make all sense for all parties. And the honesty component is probably the biggest component. First with yourself, right? Understanding if, hey, this is cool for what it is, right? Because I don't know about you guys, but I could be talking to a girl for 2 years, and I'll know if this is not going to go any further than this. And I'm just living in the moment, and I'm just happy with the way it is. I may never tell her that, which, you know, hey, it is what it is. We can say it's right or wrong. But I know. And the question is...
I'm going to just tell you that because I was that girl. I dated him for 2 years.
Yeah.
And nothing came. I didn't even get an I love you after 2 years. So when I tell you there were red flags that again, now that I'm in therapy, speaking of therapy, I'm in therapy and have been for the last couple of years, I recognized that there were huge red flags that I was refusing to see and admit to myself, I know Sabrina, look, Sabrina has a lot of opinions about my ex, and she can share them with you if she wants to, but I think there were red flags that I was refusing to acknowledge because I was so, there were a couple things. I think one, he's wonderful on paper, and I gave a shit a lot about that. I did. And
you guys talked about that. P, you talked about being good on paper, and that resonated with me.
So he was really good on paper. He was great in some other ways, and I had a good time.
Bottom out that.
Yeah. So I had a really good time, but I thought that his intelligence and like we had wonderful conversations, and he was my best friend for a long time, but it never got to that point for him, right? Like I was ready to say I love you from, the jump, because we had been friends for a long time. So I think it's with age and with therapy, I think hopefully going into my next relationship with eyes wider and I can sort of spot these things from the beginning.
That's the honesty component though.
Right, for sure. You mentioned a little while ago that now in your current age, a gentleman coming up to you and professing his goals and his aspirations doesn't scare you away, right?
I don't think it's ever scared me away. I think Sabrina would disagree with that statement.
So how about the flip right now? Right now you find a guy that walks up to you and is preaching the entanglement, is preaching that I don't want a relationship. Does that still work? He has X, Y, Z, all of the above that, all the stuff you're interested in and attracted to, he just doesn't want to be in a relationship.
Nope. I have been single since I broke up with my ex 2 years ago, and I am happily in that. And I haven't even hooked up with someone new in that time. To show you the level of not wanting to do that.
Yeah, but how do you know that? And I guess it's, it's putting a lot on an entanglement, but I was going to say, how do you know it couldn't turn into something more?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm just not willing.
That's the game I'll be spitting right now if I was single trying to talk to you, Arielle. I'll be like, listen here, man, check this out.
It's not that
we don't know where this will go.
I get the requests. I understand the request. I'm just not willing to put myself out there like that. Look, COVID has certainly hurt my chances of even entanglements at this point, much less a relationship.
Especially in Florida.
80%.
Especially in Florida. I
am 39 years old, and I have a badass coven of female friends who have been my friends from birth up until, a month or two ago. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that the vast majority of entanglements do not turn into relationships. So if you're going to play the numbers, you're better off going with a guy who either doesn't tell you one way or another, or is at least open to the possibility of a relationship. If a relationship is what you're looking for, you're better off going for one of those, because to be honest, there's like mad dudes out there. Like, it's not like there's a shortage of dudes. So like, why go for one who's spitting the game Chris is talking about when you can say with like scientific certainty that unless you trap him into a baby, you probably won't even ever have to see him again.
Yeah, but
this is the third time I've talked about trapping men, and I don't want anyone to think that I like actually trap them, but I have seen that work out. So I've seen entanglements turn into marriages when a pregnancy has happened. And that's almost the only time I've ever seen it happen. I've got a couple unicorns here and there, but what you got?
This was an entanglement before it became a marriage?
It sure was. And you're one of the few unicorns. You are one of the stories that I talk about that is an outlier when I'm talking about.
So you're saying there's a chance.
You are one of the unicorns.
Sabrina, you get into a slippery slope, right? Because, and this is a question I want to ask you guys later, but some men love to tell you how they're feeling in that moment. And I'm sure they sure as hell believe it in that instance, but they're not really thinking long term. And damn well I got played and got told all of the dreams and none of it came true. And so I think men also play that game. So I would rather you be honest and say, I'm just here to have a good time. I'm not here for a long time.
Because maybe I am too. Maybe I am too at that moment. Maybe I'm just here for a good time at that moment. I need a date to a wedding to make an ex jealous or something. And I can deal with you for like a couple months or something. Yeah.
I prefer the honesty. For sure.
So I'm just listening to you all, and I completely understand it. But when we utter some shit like that, we become the dogs and the assholes and the yada yada yada.
Maybe you do when you're saying it to a 25-year-old woman, but if you are like straight with a 35-year-old woman and you're like, listen, I'm not looking for anything serious, I can tell you I've had conversations with my female friends where like, can't fault him, like he told me what he wanted. I wasn't really listening. I decided to do it anyway. I can't fault him. I'm just angry with myself right now. I think that as we mature as women, that you guys are not, you only become the dog when you mislead us. Like, just don't mislead women.
And
yeah,
and
but
my earlier example, entanglements can work if you both are honest from the beginning,
Yeah.
right? So
yeah,
I'm still with this person 4 years later, but that's because we're honest from the beginning.
Yeah, but that's not always the case though. When you're honest from the beginning, what happens is you end up knocking the bottom out their ass, and then feelings happen, and now we have to be the bad guys and go, look, we talked about this in the beginning. You said
you're
it was
not
okay.
but you're not the bad guy. I think that most of the time when that happens, women are mad at themselves, and it sucks if you have to be the one to bear it. But I think that as we mature, then you don't catch the brunt of that anger, and the anger is at yourself for falling for it again. And so hopefully her girlfriends will be the ones that like pick her up when she's down, and that she, like, you might get a curt cutoff, but like if you from the beginning you're like, I'm not about a relationship, and she's like, I'm gonna gamble on it anyway, and you to quote you directly, knock the bottom out of that ass.
That's Jamie Foxx. Actually, what's his name?
Okay.
My man Buns. That's
To quote,
got a brother from uptown with 9 inches of ding dong knocking
knocking
the bottom
out your
ass.
ass, right?
so
Casual sex. Maybe the girl wants a deeper commitment. Maybe the girl wants a soulmate. Maybe the girl's got some soul searching to do.
Maybe the girl got a brother uptown with 9 inches of ding dong knocking the bottom out your ass.
Shut up.
once her ass is without a bottom because it has been knocked out of place, and
This got real strange.
I can make anything.
I'm glad this episode's on your podcast. Go ahead.
I can make anything sound clinical.
Oh my god.
So yeah, once that happens, and I know that I've been in a position before where that has been communicated either directly or super indirectly to me, where like a relationship was not on the table, but I had it in my mind. I was like, well, maybe he might change his mind like later once he sees how fabulous I am. And it never happened. And while I don't know that I still like that guy, and I might still be angry with him, but I haven't lost any respect for him, because, and it's not something that it's not a person that I would talk about negatively. Like if someone's like, is he a good person? I'd be like, he's fine. I wouldn't be like, fuck that guy because blah, blah. Like it's my bad. I played myself.
Yeah, but how long does it take you to come to that realization? A lot of times that doesn't happen until the man's long out of your system and you've mother effed him up and down the street.
I would never do that. I'm not a mother F anybody up and down the street, because I'm very much, I'm fairly self-aware.
Lady.
Well, yeah, sure, I'm a lady, but I'm also self-aware. Like, I know what I'm signing up for. That doesn't make it hurt any less. It doesn't mean the tears aren't going to come. It doesn't mean I'm not going to be angry. It's just that I'm also not one of those girls that gets angry at the other woman. If someone I've never been cheated on, but if a guy decides he likes another girl, you said that I know of, Chris? Well, I haven't had any boyfriends except Zev. So unless Zev was cheating on me, like,
Touche.
right. Probably never.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah,
I recommend it.
But were you mad at the other woman? Because
No,
like,
of course
yeah,
not.
exactly. It's not her fault.
I've been cheated on too.
Unless she's your friend. You have?
Oh, Chris.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh my
I mean,
Chris.
It was kind of like revenge, but that was she cheated on me nonetheless.
Wait,
Aw.
revenge because you cheated on her first?
Yeah, most definitely.
Oh, never mind. I don't feel sorry for your ass
Yeah.
anymore.
Really though?
We were on the topic.
Sympathy card?
We were on the topic. I just thought I would.
You said
add my 2
the
cents.
events out of order. You said them out of order. What you meant to say was, I cheated on someone, and then I got cheated on. What you said was, I got cheated on.
No, we broke up after I cheated. So I did my time, and then we got back together, and then she cheated on me.
Oh, Christopher.
I don't even want to go there.
I think.
Entanglement. So here's what I'll say too, is that, look, I'm talking about my entanglement as though it was somehow perfect. It wasn't. There were moments where I had feelings, where he had feelings, and we had to work it out. Last summer, he like flew me out to go watch a USA soccer game with him. And I thought, okay, well, maybe he wants to do something. This is some huge grand gesture. Maybe there's something here.
Out?
You got flued out like City Girls.
Flued out.
It was a lot of fun. I hope my boss never listens to this, because I definitely called in sick because it was on a But anyway, the point is that it was a lot of fun. And I thought, okay, something's going to come from this. And then nothing came from it. And I know Sabrina heard me saying some things about said gentleman because I felt them when I felt slightly played. But the reality is our agreement was never any different.
I was just about to hit you with the Khaled voice. You played yourself.
Yeah.
I did play myself because he's still the same exact person who's never going to leave Baltimore. He's always going to be there. He's just not looking for that. That's okay.
So have either of you been the initiator in the entanglement?
Sabrina's definitely have.
I mean, I'm not. What do you mean initiator? Like, have I found a guy that's in a relationship?
No, not
then,
necessarily like that. But just in listening to Arielle, like the dude told her he wasn't about a relationship. She was like, "Bet I'm with it. Let's do it." Like, have you hit the dude? Like, listen, I'm not looking for nothing. This is what I need from you. Let's do this.
So I think I was probably the fuckboy. I definitely can tell you off the top of my head. I can think of two guys that I kind of strung along, like that they wanted more. They wanted to be in a relationship, and I was like.
Have you ever been the other
And then it was over. I've been the other woman before. Once that I knew of, and then maybe 2 or 3 times that I didn't know of. And I was angry when I knew I was the other woman. I was like, okay, I signed up for that, whatever. But like when there's
like an initiation of some kind. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, there's one guy where I was the other woman where he was married. This was when I was in college. It was this guy that went to my school, but I had recently graduated or whatever. He was like married and like just did tell me he was married. And I was like, give me the chance to decide if this is an entanglement I want to participate in. You're out here representing yourself, coming back on campus to visit your fraternity brothers, like trying to like what? Just I might still say yes, but now you've removed my autonomy from me. Like, oh, I don't. But now he's a waiter at a restaurant in Columbia and a struggling actor and a Trump supporter. So fuck him.
See, I wish mine was like that. Damn.
And he's divorced.
Mine is
Damn. You break downfall?
Karma's a bitch.
I guess so.
And his fraternity brothers don't really talk to him anymore. So he's losing everything.
Okay, so how did the entanglement end? Who cut it off? Like how did it
This one probably lasted like 2 weeks. I was in college. Like wasn't important. Once I found out he was married, I just stopped answering his calls.
Back to your point, bro.
What I'll say is not every entanglement has to be looked at like with negative connotations.
Agreed.
Right? I feel like obviously now it's the recent events brought new light to entanglements, but I feel like some entanglements are fine. Like there's a mutual understanding, right? It's like, hey, it is what it is. You could be Mr. Right or Mrs. Right, but maybe not Mrs. Right now or Mr. Right now, right? So for right now, we just gonna cool out. But I think where you get, again, speaking for myself, where I got myself into trouble is my entanglements during this time I was in a relationship. And I made it very clear to the girls I was dealing with that, look, I got a girl, right? But to what you were talking about earlier, Chief, it's like that didn't stop the feelings from progressing, right? Because they didn't have a boyfriend. Like for all intents and purposes, I was their boyfriend, even though I made it very clear that that's not what I wanted. You know what I'm saying? But, and then to what we were talking about earlier, where it's like we become the bad guy. And it's like, no, how can I be the bad guy? I made my position very clear.
Where did your feelings lie in that though? Did you develop feelings as well, or were you like, nah, because I got my girl, I'm just having sex?
Nah, I'm gonna tell you where I went wrong. Where I went wrong was like I told, to your point, Arielle, I told the girl I loved her, but I did. I just wasn't like in love with her. You know what I'm saying? Like
I'm waiting for our part of the episode because I have questions for you gentlemen.
Run them.
Because no, wait.
We can run them in.
Let me finish my damn thought. Thank you. Like I said, we were friends for so long and we were so cool. So I actually did love the girl, but it's like, this is gonna sound messed up, but I'm not like bringing her to family events and stuff like that. But I loved her as a friend. Like we cool. You know what I'm saying? But she was like in love with me. You know what I'm saying? And I guess I could have stopped it, but from my perspective, I'm like, no, I'm in the right. As messed up as that sounds, because I told you what my intentions were with this. So that's what I'm saying, where it's like, it can start one way with an understanding, but as time goes on, it's hard to turn your feelings off, if you will.
It is. So I found myself in a situation to where we agreed that it wouldn't go beyond the entanglement components of what a situationship should be. And I ended up catching feelings, and I had to like preserve them in order to like maintain a little bit of integrity behind the agreement we had. You know what I'm saying? Rather than being a dude like, yo, listen, this is what I'm feeling right now. Can we give it a shot? Like, because we made it very clear in the beginning, I felt like that was a standard I had to stick to. So I didn't push the envelope of a relationship because we had that talk a while ago.
Since we're on the subject, let's talk about guys not being able to accept those feelings. You know what I'm saying? Like in that particular situation, right? You regardless, just for the record, for everybody listening, regardless if you say it or you don't, if you feel it, it's going to be shown, right? In one way, shape, form, or fashion, it's going to come out, right?
Yep.
Whether it be in anger, however, it's going to show up. There was one entanglement that I had, and I was single at the time, that this girl had me so messed up. Like I felt like I had no control over my emotions. So I had called the fellas in.
Call an intervention.
I called an intervention for myself. I told them what was happening. And I was like, yo, I've never felt like this. I'm like, if she would have asked me for my paycheck last night, she would have got it. Like, that's how bad it was. And I was like, I gotta cut her off.
Hey,
so,
what's the equivalent for 9 inches uptown? Our brother uptown with 9 inches ding dong knocking the bottom out your ass. Whatever that was for her, she had.
Man,
she
listen,
fucking
man.
you up.
Yeah. So I talked to the fellas, and I was like, yo, I gotta cut her off. So I cut her off the next day. Like I'm like I can't do this. Cold turkey.
Like I think I might have even intercepted a couple text messages.
Like
give me your phone.
Cold turkey, because I was so out of my comfort zone because I felt like I didn't have control, right? Like I didn't. And so my point is, I may call it masculinity, call it whatever you want to call it, machismo. But since I wasn't in control of my emotions, and I wasn't in control of my emotions, I wasn't ready to give them to someone else, right? Because one, that's a level of vulnerability up until that point I had never experienced. So I wasn't about to give it over to someone else because I didn't know where it was going to take me. And I didn't know if I can trust her with that. And I didn't know what it was. Like, I didn't know if it was, I was feeling that because there was a lust component, or I was feeling that because like, damn, she's the one, but it wasn't worth 26, maybe 25, 26.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this might be a good time for Sabrina to give her theory on successful black man syndrome, because I think that especially men in their 20s have a hard time accepting those feelings. And she might have been it, but it sounds really unhealthy, actually. I don't think you should be doing all that for anybody, but I don't know. Sabrina, do you want to give your theory?
So, my theory about successful black men, it's twofold. So I'll start with an example. If you ask a white guy who's 25 what he does for a living, he'll be like, oh, I'm a teacher, or I'm a lawyer, I work in sales, or something like that. If you ask a 25-year-old black man, this is very specific for when I was 25, but if you ask him what he's doing, he's like, oh, I'm a teacher, or I'm a lawyer, I'm in sales, but I also like on the side, I'm trying to do investment property, but then also like I got this tennis shoe line that's trying to come out, but also like sometimes I make big CDs and I DJ. And it's like you're doing so many things that you're not like focused, and that kind of translates into success, but it also translates into how you date. It's like you can't just focus on one woman. It's like I've got like this woman who's really great, but also there's this one here, and then this one here, and then this one here. And I think that the more success that black men have, the more options you have in the dating world. And also the more you feel like you don't have to be constrained by the things that held down or held back, depending on who your father is. And I know we talk about daddy issues in this, but like the things that held down our fathers and our grandfathers, like my granddad was married for 50 something years until the day he died. And my grandmother was probably like one of the greatest strengths in his life. And my parents were married for 20 years. I mean, they got divorced, but then my dad got married after that again. So like, I think they saw a value in marriage and in partnership that like today's younger black successful men very specifically, because if you look at the less successful among us, those that don't have the degrees and don't have the achievements and the jobs, they often are more likely to be married than and that's completely unscientific, but I look at a lot of people who find value in partnership in a way that successful Black men of a certain age don't. And then you guys want to get married at 45, and like, it's a lot. And you've spent your whole life.
If you're 45 and single and you're great, please email us at Sabrina and Arielle at gmail.com, because
yes,
I date older men happily. So.
If you are at the end of your successful Black man syndrome, and this doesn't translate to white guys. If you look at white guys your same age, all those mofos are married, with the exception of my boyfriend, who is the rogue white man who does not do that. He has successful Black man syndrome, which is really weird. But like you, it's
I have so many opinions. First of all, I never heard that. I never heard your theory, and I appreciate your perspective. And I agree to a certain extent. I really do. However, I don't think the hustle translates to the hustle in a relationship to the degree that you're saying it does. And here's what I mean by that. Like, I think the hustle comes from a place of, whether it be poverty, lesser opportunities, whether it be just wanting to be better, right, as a human being. And I think all that stands true. Those same things that has gotten that Black man to work as hard as he has or is on those ventures can be said about a woman too, right? So he's working that hard for a goal, right? Whether it be financially, whether it be status, no matter what it is, long-term wealth. Once he gets, that work is helping him get closer to that goal. I think, again, back to what I was saying before, a woman will help us set the standards, right? If we don't have them at the point in our life where we are. So I think if a woman came in that man's life together, then there could be a possibility that that man could settle down with that one woman, as opposed to translating his work ethic into his dating life and keeping that same mentality.
So then why doesn't it work the same with white guys and white women? Are white women just better at like making a move more quickly? Like,
I can't speak for white men.
Well, my point was, the comparison is that Black men take forever to get in a relationship, then they take forever to get engaged, then they take forever to get married. It's a much longer process. Like, I watch my friends who are Black and who are white who met at the same time, and it's just such a longer agony.
Go ahead, Arielle.
No, so I remember what I was going to say earlier, and I think this answers that. So I think very particular, and this is for Black men, and I think probably Hispanic men too, like minority men and minority women. So minority women of our generation have grown up to be taught that we can have everything. If you work hard enough, you could have your dream job, you can have your perfect family, you can have it all, right? That's what we've been taught as little girls. I think minority men have been taught you have to be successful in business because you have to provide. So I think a lot of Black men wait to have the wife and the kids and everything because they want to be in a spot financially where they feel like what they've been taught is they need to be able to support that family. So they're not going to make that move until they feel like they have the right job, career, they're making enough money.
Do you think white men aren't taught the same thing?
No, here's the difference.
No, because they have generational wealth that
not all of them. Not all of them.
Now, I won't even go as far as saying generational wealth, but what I will go as far as saying is that they statistically have a better example of two-parent households, right? They have a better example of that. They have a better example of seeing two parents raise a family.
Two-parent household.
I had a two-parent household.
But,
daddy issues.
Yeah, if y'all haven't listened, P just met his dad like 3 weeks ago. Anyway.
So, you guys have been asking us a lot of questions about single women, and I think we're kind of like mixing the topic of entanglements and dating, which I guess is fine, and that's also a product of the era that we're all in, right? Like that right. Sometimes entanglements and dating weave themselves through each other. But I think Arielle has some questions for you guys, and since she did all the homework,
I do have questions.
I'm gonna let her take the lead.
All right, my first question, and this is for both of you. I feel like a lot of women can relate to what I'm about to say, which is y'all talk a lot of pretty words and y'all say really beautiful things. And I actually believe that you believe those words when you say them.
Woo, girl.
But then it's just in the moment. None of it ever transpires. It doesn't come to fruition. And I'm curious if y'all, one, recognize that you do that, and two, if you could tell me why you do that.
Ooh.
What words are you referencing?
Ooh.
Like the dream selling, like, okay, well, we're gonna have a baby and we're gonna get a house and we're gonna get married. Like I think the dream selling happens to a lot of women.
Or
and
even like
Chris,
they sell you.
I love you, and then you didn't mean I love you.
And they sell you on vacations too. Like, oh, well, like you'll be like see a commercial and be like, oh, we can go there. Like, yeah, we can totally go there.
Can I tackle that one first, Belle? So, because of me being an artist and using words to garner people's attention, I'm oftentimes discredited when I say things. Like, I've been known to answer a question and get like, wow, that sounds too good to be true. And it almost sounds like it's rehearsed, something like that. And they think it's a part of the poetry. They think it's a part of like what I do for a living. So oftentimes I'm deemed as like insincere because I'm creative and I'm quick on my feet and so on and so forth. So I make it a point to stand behind what I say. So you can't sell a dream. You can't do that because, again, every time I meet someone or we get to this thing, I don't even like tell people I write poetry, I do poetry, because they get this whole, they create this image of me. But again, with that, I'm often found as insincere because I've been told I'm very good with words. So I have to make it a point to put some action behind what I say. Otherwise, like you said, it just comes off as fluff.
I love the question, Arielle. I've never done that though. Like I told you, I didn't take girls on dates. Like I wasn't taking girls on, I wasn't flying nobody out nowhere. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just not what I did. Because my whole theory, and I said this on the last episode, my theory was if I do all of this for you, right? Like what's the next girl's incentive to be in a relationship with me, right? So I never did that. Now what I did do, which I'll admit that I strung things on, even though I said, I made it clear, like, hey, here's where I stand, but I wasn't stopping it. You know what I'm saying? Like I was very cognizant that she was developing feelings. She was painting this picture in her mind. But what I always hung my hat on, right, wrong, or indifferent, but I told you this is what it is, right? So if you're going to continue to feel that way, then that's you. But I told you where I stand. Now, again, like she's human, right? So I understand that what I say doesn't matter as much as what I do. And that was my issue.
I think to your point though, Belle, what happens is even when we set the standards and the terms in the very, very beginning, like we're genuinely good dudes. So throughout the course of this entanglement, we're being kind, we're being polite, we're presenting in a way that we should when dealing with somebody. And that oftentimes gets misinterpreted or gets looked at as, oh, well, he's showing me different than what he told me. No, I'm just being who I am. But in retrospect, like it's also giving you all those hopes and dreams.
All right, next question. Y'all ready? We talk about cheating. Ooh. And I have a theory about
Black
cheating.
men don't cheat.
Shut up.
Question answered. And next question.
All right, well, I'm gonna ask it anyway, and y'all can decide not to answer. But here's my question. So I have a theory about cheating, and it's that the reason why people continue to cheat but stay in their relationship is because through the act of cheating, you are getting what you're missing in your relationship. So had you not had this other person enter it, whatever was missing, whether it was intimacy, sex, whatever it is being brought on. So I think men do it because then they're whole, right? They have their woman, they have their other girl who are making them whole. So what is really preventing you from having these situationships, right? And then as a woman, I think a lot of women have gotten into the trap of, he's gonna leave her. He's told me he's not happy. But I think women forget that they're now strengthening the original relationship by being a part of it. So that's just my theory. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I'd like to preface this.
What's the question? Like, why would we not do it?
The question is, what are your thoughts on her theory?
If I had to give you an answer to your question based on the perspective of some cheaters that I know, which aren't black men, I would say they lack maturity, and they're incapable of, at that point in life, of having those intense conversations and saying, listen, Arielle, this is an area where we may be struggling, where I'm lacking. What can we do to work on this? And I think once you develop proper effective communication between parties, you can address those situations and not have to cheat and not have to do that, because now your lady knows what you need. And if she cares about you enough, then she'll do what she's supposed to do, and you'll do what you're supposed to do to make sure everything stays on track. So
I can also give you another perspective. That man wasn't ready to be in a committed relationship. However, he knew how good of a catch she was. So he didn't want anybody else to have her. So it could have been an opportunity where he was like, all right, well, I'm going to lock this down and I'm going to get this out my system in an effort to not allow anybody else to take her from me. Right? Now, I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. Well, it's obviously wrong, but that's just one way of looking at it, right? It's just kind of, it's a phase, right? That person wasn't ready to be there. He's there because he hasn't met anybody better than her. So he knows what he sees in her. So he knows somebody else will see the same thing. And that could potentially take that opportunity away from him. It's very selfish, but that does happen.
Yeah, but then you also have the situation where dude's messing with a shorty who doesn't even like hold a candle to his lady, but for some reason or another, he's out there doing what he do. I was watching a movie today and I wrote in my phone, dude said, you won't wife a side chick, but you'll ruin your family for one. And I was like, ooh, that dudes, if you're gonna cheat, you better make sure you you do it with somebody who has potential to be someone significant in your life.
Or maybe it's an out. Maybe it's you don't want to be in any relationship at all and you don't know how to get yourself out. So yeah.
Yeah, that's also true.
I mean, then it all goes full circle. You lack communication. Yeah. You lack communication skills where you can say, listen, I don't want to be here anymore. So you just, some dudes probably might rather get caught cheating, and then that's their out.
Then they can be, then they're the bad guy, and there's a reason, right? They don't have to do the breaking up. They can get broken up with, and like, they don't have to like confront any sort of feelings or emotions or do any deep dives into their self and wonder why they're in this heterosexual relationship that they didn't want to be in.
Well, and Sabrina and I have talked about this too, how like the hardest breakups are the ones that don't have like a clear-cut reason as to why you broke up. I think the harder relationships to end are the ones where there's no glaring problem. It's just like the little things start to build up. So it's that emotional unavailability. It's that lack of communication. It's these other things that, I mean, I hate to call y'all out, but I feel like men are the ones that typically have those issues. And I think it's hard as a woman.
What issues?
Lack of communication and emotional unavailability.
That's fair.
That's very fair. It's very accurate as well.
So I think it's hard as a woman because I think, this is what happened in my last relationship. It's like, I felt like I was giving my 1,000, but I still wasn't getting back what I was putting into it. And so there was nothing glaringly wrong other than I deserve better.
Did you communicate that?
No, I never communicated to him because I needed 2 years of therapy to figure that out. But in hindsight, I now can look back on it and be like, I wasn't ever going to be happy with somebody who didn't give me back what I put into it, which is not fair. But my third question to you all, and I know Sabrina has dealt with this, and I know a lot of the women that listen to our podcast have dealt with this. As a single woman without kids who's very successful in their career, and I hate even talking about this because it bothers me because it feels like we're all like in this little group, in this little bubble. But I think that there's some validity to the fact that men say they want really strong, intelligent women, but yet all the strong, intelligent women that I know are single.
Because we haven't grown up yet. Men haven't grown up, and when they say they want this, they haven't found it within themselves. So when a strong woman comes on, it's she's pushy, she's she's this, that, and the third, because they haven't grown up on themselves.
Bossy, I get that one a lot.
Right. Like,
yeah, I 1,000,000% agree with Chief. 1,000,000%. But if we can be vulnerable here, that man that says they want all those things, they may never had those things in a woman, right? So they may have just dealt with the everyday girl from around the way that you may have gone to high school with, gone to college with, you've known them. They haven't gotten out of their comfort zone.
And to just to piggyback on kind of like the full conversation we've been having earlier, I think also if dude hasn't hit his level of success, whatever that meant to him, to find a woman who's more successful than him, he feels inadequate. So therefore he's afraid of that. He's afraid of that challenge. He's afraid
That's
of that.
insecurity though.
Same, all of the above.
I remember saying to Chief, we had this conversation a long time ago. I remember saying that I was like, I want my woman to make more than me, right? Like that's what I used to say. And I don't know if I wholeheartedly meant that, but that's what I felt like I meant. Because my thing was, I'm like, if she makes more than me, she's just gonna push me to make more money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
With the mentality that we carry. With the mentality we carry, that's definitely it. Like she makes more than me.
Yeah.
It's motivating to continue to do and be better and get more.
I think you have to be mature enough and secure enough with yourself to have that conversation with yourself, though, because as a woman who's made more than her partner, it becomes a sticking point, even if subconsciously, but it certainly becomes a sticking point. And I can tell you right now. So when I started my 5-year relationship, he made more money than I did. I was right out of college, and he would pay for dinners and we'd go out. But the moment I started making more money, I felt like, well, we're in this together. It's fine. You were paying for shit in the beginning. Now I make more, so I'll pay for more things. And it was, I think, to him, emasculating. Whereas in my mind, I'm like, what's our money? What does it matter? Like, I'm just making more right now. Like, it didn't matter to me, genuinely.
Well,
but it's a problem.
I think men tie, not all men, I think some men tie their identity to what they can do for a woman.
Right.
And then, so yeah.
Well, so a wise man, and by wise man, I mean my boyfriend, says, he's like, well, she has everything she needs. He's like, except a support system. So like, he is the one, he supports me. He's my biggest cheerleader. When I decided I wanted to vlog, he bought me lights. When I decided I wanted to podcast, he's like, when are you guys going to finally get started on that? Like everything I want to do, he is so supportive. And that's something, and he never tries to get me to change who I am, which was a problem with a couple guys that I dated. They wanted me to be a different person. So I think that the more we encourage men to do things like go to therapy and learn about themselves, the more they figure out that like you're worth more than your paycheck or your wallet. And there are other ways that you can support a woman or, you know, support your partner than just some women don't need the money, right? They need, what they want is someone who can learn how to listen, support, learn how to do hair, because that's not a thing I want to do ever. Or like, you know, just the things that like you have to, in the end, it is a partnership. The point is we've grown up with a lot of these, and if you guys haven't figured it out, I'm for smashing traditional gender roles and kind of rebuilding things that fit your situation. Mm-hmm. And for most people, that will still fit a lot of the traditional gender roles because, you know, that's how men and women are when you're in heterosexual relationships. But I think that like, if you decide what works for you and really take a look at who you are, then you won't feel like you have to make more than somebody or be more meek than somebody or anything like that. You'll feel like you fit together and you kind of do things. And that doesn't mean your relationship's not going to have challenges. Like I said, dating is hard, but like relationships are hard too. You still have to fight, still a battle. Battle's not the right word. It's still a journey and it's still a project that you're working on, but you have to like figure out. I think everybody can wear the pants, is I think what I'm trying to say, as long as they're different style of pants. There are people out there who legitimately don't need anything from anybody else. And those people are single and abundantly happy their whole life. But they also find things they need in friendships and other kind of relationships.
But I think, and when you identify why, right, as a woman, I won't even say as a woman, as a man, what we want to hear is why are you with me? Right? Like you take money out, you take all those things out. Why are you with me? And if you can articulate that and identify that early on, then you won't necessarily have that challenge of somebody feeling like I'm not needed, because I'm not needed in the traditional gender role in this particular relationship.
Hey, hold on, Chief. Do you have a hard time dating women though? Because, and here's my question to you: how early on do you share that you have children?
Right off the rip. That's the best part of who I am, is being a dad. So they know that off the rip. Like there's no hiding that. You know what I'm saying? Like I talk about my children with a smile on my face. They are like wonderful human beings. So they get that early. I've matured, and so when I'm dating, I'm a great dater. Like in that whole, you know what I mean? That's
yeah. But do you want to be a great dater?
No, I don't. I don't want to be a great dater. I want to be a great husband, but the time will come. But you gotta take one step at a time, homie.
Here's my question: does that work in picking up women? Like, no offense, if
being obsessed with your kids, yeah.
Now, y'all want to know what works? Being a single dad in your 20s, I was like fishing with dynamite.
So more.
I'm being honest. Like, and I never led with
Why?
that.
Because they thought she was cute? Like, why?
No, because a lot of them had deadbeat dads. Deadbeat baby fathers and deadbeat dads in some cases. Final thought, guys, be clear in your expectations and standards, right? Be clear what you're expecting, inspect what you expect, and write down what you want. And if it's not what you want, don't settle.
Man's got a point. This has been another episode of All Black Men Need Therapy. Do us all a favor and hug a black man today and tomorrow. We out.
Peace.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Now we're gonna flip it.
All right, Sabrina, you have a final thought?
Yes, I have a final thought. Dating is a wonderland. It's crazy and adventurous. And if you go into it with an open heart and an open mind and a clear sense of self, you can have the success that you desire. So everybody get out there, get to dating, get to mating, and have fun. Life's short.
Well, this has been another episode of All Black Men Need Therapy and Still Figuring It Out. Hug a black man hoy y mañana y el día después.
And the day after that.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
It's my favorite when the boys do it.
That's the best thing I've heard all day.